That was me on a bad hair day, and welcome to this video. It just shows the setup and settings I use on my Canon Legria HF10G down on the farm. External mic and handheld. I just thought I'd show you this shot of its zoom, because people ask me, well, what's a by 10 zoom like? Well, it's more than enough for me, and then I can multiply it when I get it into post-production. So we'll just see what happens now. That's Rufus, by the way, the front horse. The back one you can just see is Charlie. Now that is by 10 zoom. I have everything set on the camera.
I keep my
and manual
focus
settings,
set at about
the lot,
4 foot 6.
Focusing
so
as well.
All my shots are in focus. Right into infinity. Which saves me altering the manual setting. If I want to lighten and darken, then I keep a variable filter on the front. Variable ND, neutral density filter. Now I'll show you what happens when I move it. You can see it all getting lighter and lighter, and then darker and darker. If you see my finger in the shot, I'm sorry, I can't see it. So there you go. Nighttime and daylight, pretty good. And then I just dial it in until I see the lines appearing on the highlights, and then I back it off a touch, and that's it. So I can leave my focus set. It's called sort of gun and run. I keep it permanently at f4 because that's the best setting on the lens. It's the ultimate setting, f4. I have a load of f4 settings. I know that sounds stupid, but it's f4 with built-in neutral density. You've got by 8, by a quarter, by a half, by 3/4. It's just that I prefer to control it with an outside neutral density filter, so I use a variable. Cost me a lot of money, but you needn't spend a lot of money on them. You can get them for £8, £10, £12 and they still do the job. That would be around about 12, 16 and 18 to 20 bucks for my American pals. So there you go. And I keep it on all the time, so it protects my lens, and I've got a neutral density on there every time I take a shot, be it still or in video. The other question I get asked is, do I alter my speed?
Well, the short answer is no. I never walk any faster or any slower. Not at my age. It's not safe to do so. But to recap, the frame rate and shutter speeds are related, but they are completely separate concepts. The frame rate refers to the number of individual frames that comprise each second of a video you record, also known as FPS, which means frames per second. The most common frame rates in video are 24, 25 and 30 frames per second. Shutter speeds refers to the amount of time that each individual frame is exposed for in video. The shutter speed you use will almost always be a fraction of a second. The number used in setting a camera's shutter speed refers to the denominator of the fraction of a second. For example, if you set your camera's shutter speed to 60, that means that each frame is being exposed for a 60th of a second. People often make the mistake of equating frame rate with shutter speed. In other words, some people determine that if they're shooting with a shutter speed of, say, 100th of a second, then they're in turn shooting 100 frames a second. This is not true. Depending on the camera you're using, the frame rate you've selected, you're probably shooting at either 24, 25 or 30 frames a second, but still exposing each individual frame rate for 100th of a second. So as a rule of thumb, you want the denominator of your shutter speed to be approximately double the number of frames per second that you're recording. In other words, if you're recording at 30 frames per second, you want your shutter speed to be 1/60th of a second. So even though you generally set the denominator of the shutter speed to be double the number of frames per second, you can achieve some interesting stylistic effects by straying from the norm. Shutter speed can have a very noticeable effect on the look of your video, particularly when it comes to motion. A fast shutter speed such as 1/400th of a second will produce a series of very crisp frames that have a choppy look when played back. A slow shutter speed such as 1/30th of a second, on the other hand, will produce a series of slightly blurred frames that have a much smoother look when played back. Now that's just about weighs it all up. But having said that, rules are there and made to be broken. Experiment. I very seldom use anything over 1/50th of a second. I never ever use the gain controls, but people do. They like the grainy effect. I personally don't like it, so I don't use it. If I want grain, I can put it in post-production. Now I use Corel Video Studio Pro 9, the ultimate version, and I can do what I want with my videos as long as I shoot a half decent picture and sometimes get half decent audio. People will forgive a rotten looking film if the audio is good, but woe betide if you mess the audio up. You know, you should spend as much on your audio as you do. There's my finger in the shot. I told you it was there. You should spend as much on your audio as you did on your camera and equipment. Speakers, not speakers, microphones and so on, starting at £100. But I've got one at £10 and it works perfectly well. I'm delighted with it. Anyway, thanks for bearing with me and watching this lot. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, say so. Leave a comment, leave a tick, follow me, but don't go too slow. Bye.